Now what I want all of you to take away from this opening part is that we get our Transcendence form in 12 seconds, just by firing our weapon. That's it. This is in the Master Nightfall as well, the hardest difficulty, and I'm in here solo, and just watch how this build destroys every champion we come up against, even 4 champions at the same time. This Prismatic Warlock build is an endgame monster, and I never even stunned a single champion using any artifact mod. All of the stunning was done using buffs and debuffs, our Transcendence form, and our super, along with our exotic armor piece. I really think that this shows the power of Prismatic, because I have been getting a few different comments from people saying that they don't think Prismatic is that strong, or they're not even using their Transcendence form. The best way I can try to help you is to think of Transcendence as a mini super. You get extra damage reduction when you're in Transcendence, you do a bit more damage when you're in it, and you have infinite abilities that you can use to really shut down and crowd control enemies. Plus it helps you build your actual super so much faster, and with that you can just be chaining the two back and forth together. Now in all this gameplay you're watching, we stun those overload champions with slow, suppression, and jolt debuffs, so 3 different ways. It handles unstoppable champions with the free shatter debuff, ignitions, and suspend debuffs, so another 3 different sources. Then it takes care of barrier champs with the radiant buff and our exotic armor piece that can pierce barriers, not including you can just lock them up with freezing as well. We also add in unravel, weaken, and scorch debuffs to everything. So we're bringing 9 different debuffs, and since we can get our Transcendence so quickly along with our super, we're just a walking champion counter without even bringing anti-champion weapons, which I think is pretty crazy. Everything starts with the new exotic Kvostov, or I guess technically old one. I finally unlocked it the other day. I already have 1500 kills on it, and we tie this weapon into the build so well. The main perk is every 7th bullet bounces and deals more damage. And then the second perk is Eyes Up Guardian, which is the really important one. When we pick up an Orb of Power, it strengthens the next 7 bounces, which provide more damage and more bounces. Now these put out a ton of damage on their own, even in difficult content. And the more damage we put out, the more Transcendence energy and super energy we get in return. Also, exotic primaries hit red bars extra hard, and they give us a ton of extra super energy back since they're a primary compared to a special weapon or a heavy weapon. So all you need to do is grab Orbs of Power, and the weapon comes with Shoot to Loot, so we can do that from far away as well. Now we pair this with 1 kinetic siphon mod to generate plenty of orbs, but we'll add to that even more further with orb generation. But the main part is here that we pair this with triple kinetic weapon surge on our boots, time dilation on our class item, and the radiant orbs artifact mod from the artifact. This means every time we shoot an orb, or pick one up, we gain a 25% weapon damage bonus from the radiant buff for 10 seconds, and we get 22% damage buff for 15 seconds from the surge mods, all from 1 single orb of power. So basically a 50% damage buff that we can have up all the time just by shooting 1 orb of power far away, and that increases the outgoing damage to feed our super and Transcendence because we only need to deal damage. Now for your super, of course, take Song of Flame. We pair it with Phoenix Dive as our class ability, Arcane Needle as our melee ability with those 3 charges, and to apply the Unravel debuff, and then Storm Grenade. Storm Grenade will apply the Jolt debuff for us with how we have our fragment set up, and then it can also make us amplified, which then plays into the Galvanic Armor mod on the artifact, which gives us even more damage reduction. For the 2 aspects, I like to pair it with Hellion and Feed the Void. You all know how great Devour is with Feed the Void. Defeating a target with any ability will activate Devour, we get a full heal and a bunch of grenade energy coming back. And then Hellion lets us have that Solar Mortar that we pair with Phoenix Dive. That just puts out a ton of damage for us and can cause ignitions. For the 5 fragments, the first most important one is Facet of Grace. Defeating targets with kinetic weapons grants you bonus Transcendence energy. So again, this just pairs so well with Kvostov in that outgoing damage that we're dealing. And then defeating targets with your super grants you and nearby allies bonus Transcendence energy when you're done with your super. We also take Facet of Command. Freezing or suppressing a target reloads your weapons. This pairs nicely with our Transcendence Grenade since it does freeze and suppress enemies. That way you're never reloading when you're in your Transcendence form. We take Facet of Dawn, so with those Arcane Needles, especially in Transcendence, we can just spam them out and we'll always become radiant when we hit something for 10 seconds. Facet of Protection is our 4th fragment, 25% damage reduction when you're surrounded with enemies, and then Facet of Dominance as our last one. This allows our Void Grenades to weaken targets and our Arc Grenades to jolt targets. Storm Grenade for jolting, and our Transcendence Grenade to weaken on top of slowing, freezing, and suppressing. Now for our exotic armor piece, we take the new chest armor for the Warlock, and that is Mateodoxia. I don't even know if I said that right, but it has a pretty cool exotic perk here, and I haven't seen a lot of people really talk about this. Targets damaged by Arcane Needle emit a suspending detonation when defeated. So that's cool. Throw out a needle, kill that enemy, and you get a suspend detonation around it. Now when we're in our Transcendence specifically is where this next part really kicks in. Landing multiple Arcane Needles on the same target immediately triggers a larger, more powerful detonation. Well, since we get so many melees back very quickly in Transcendence, we can be spamming these out and create a big burst, and this thing has a big AoE, and it'll pick up champions and everything around it. And then defeating suspended targets grants melee energy, so it kind of feeds back into our overall loop. And then lastly, your Arcane Needles are strong against barrier champions, so it also can pierce a barrier champion when you're throwing it at them, which is very nice for an armor piece. Now for the rest of the mods, of course that kinetic siphon on the helmet, and then 2 ashes to assets. This lets both our grenades give us more super energy. On our arms we take 2 fire powers, so we can spawn an orb of power every 5 seconds with either of those grenades, and then a bolstering detonation, granting us class ability energy when we cause damage with any grenade. On your chest piece, that's your damage reduction, so just match whatever activity you're doing. We already went over the boots with the triple kinetic weapon surge, and then the class item was time dilation to let the surge timer last 15 seconds instead of 10. And of course we can stack that 3 times, so about 45 seconds overall. And then we also take a Reaper. Since we're going to be activating Phoenix Dive a lot, the next weapon kill you get will guarantee an orb of power. For stats on the build, aim for that 100 resilience. That's what you want in any activity, and then put your discipline and recovery up as high as possible. Now for the artifact mods, we already went over Radiant Orbs, where you pick up that Orb of Power and become Radiant, 25% weapon damage boost on all your weapons for 10 seconds. You do want to take Galvanic Armor. If you get some kills with that Storm Grenade or Jolt, you'll become Amplified, which then gives you more damage reduction thanks to Galvanic Armor. We definitely want to take Shield Crush. Because we are Radiant all the time, your grenade recharges faster and deals increased damage. And then the second part there is if we do have a Void Overshield, our melee recharges faster and deals increased damage. We do occasionally get Void Overshields. Thanks to Void Hegemony, defeating weakened targets provides a small Void Overshield. That doesn't happen quite often, but it's nice to have. And then you also want to take Transference. Gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent, and then weapon final blows while Transcendent refund light and dark energy after Transcendence ends. So if you're slaying out with Kvostov while you're Transcendent, you'll come out of there with probably half of your light and dark already filled. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is a great endgame Warlock build, and I urge you to give it a try. And if you haven't watched the few videos that you see on screen right now, the Hunter build is really great, and I hope to see you guys over watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.